And I want you to listen to this very carefully. I've been saying the failure of our government at this moment is that we didn't put into consideration the technocracy.
And then Stephen was made. It was 2007. Stephen was made Minister of Finance. For the first time in the history of Upper Nile State, we were having surplus money.
Cattle camp for people who keep cows is a place where you learn perseverance, you learn social skills, you learn ethics. And even today, as we speak, some people still bring their children from Western world and take them to cattle camp for initiation.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you. And as we observe the protocol, we recognize the presence of the Deputy Speaker of the Council of States, Honorable Mary, and recognize the presence of the former Chief Justice, Honorable and Justice Chandra Gudud. Recognize also the presence of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Juba, who is the host of today's event. We recognize the presence of the author of the book and former minister in many ministerial portfolios, Honorable Stephen Dhieu. We recognize the presence of the staff of the University of Juba, including Dr. Luca Dhieu and others, and recognize also the presence of Ambassador Doris Corbandi, and who is the envoy to Sudan, regional envoy to the Sudan, and many others. The protocol is observed. We are here today for a book launch by a very important person, a very distinguished civil servant in his beginning of his career, a very distinguished minister who contributed a lot in the topic of economy and in the country. When we have a book launch, that means another contribution to our literary and critical library has been added. It's like celebrating the birth of a new child, an intellectual child that will feed our curiosity and our thirst for knowledge. A child that will answer a lot of questions that are lingering in our minds. A child that will contribute to our understanding and will provoke our thinking for time to come. That is why we celebrate any book that comes out, any contribution that adds to our library, any contribution that explains the same. And if that contribution is coming from someone who has been an actor, who has been somebody who decided issues, who made decisions that affected millions in this country, then it is worth reading. It's a testimony of somebody who is alive, rather than a testimony with somebody who is not there. So we are here having an opportunity to interact and to set our minds and to focus on what is being launched today. The book is out there, the author is here, some of the persons who are mentioned, some of the things that have been mentioned will be said. And many people who have been there are witnesses, and they will confirm and support what the author is saying. So I will not say much, but here we are at the University of Juba. This is a place that has contributed a lot since its founding, contributed a lot to our intellectual growth, to our education, and we are all indebted. Even those who have not studied at this university, they are indebted because they have benefited in one way or another. So the host is here to open this book launch, and that is not other than Professor John Akate. You are welcome, Professor. Let us welcome him with an applause. And thank him also for allowing us to
participate. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call was already listed here in the interest of time, and also to avoid being actually compromising some of you. It really pleases me to be part of this promotion, and I apologize for the way that I've actually been invited to functions taking place. One is organized by the Minister of Health, and so that one delayed, so I had to come here. So I'm just objecting to the affairs. And so I do apologize for the delay that I had to ask for permission to wait. This is really a wonderful occasion, and really it set the tone for our civil servants and public servants to be able to inspire them to jot down their own autobiography. And this is wonderful. Didn't have all the time to read this, but the bit I read is really inspiring and educative. I wasn't very much interested in the latter part of it, in his own, the thing that he has done, rather than, in his roots. When you find a person, you look or somebody you can tell this is a successful person or a failing person, and especially a successful person, you only see the glitter, but you don't know what is underneath, the struggles, the failures, and the success and triumph, from which you can even yourself identify. It may inspire you because you know that that person has overcome at the end of it, and that you too will. The roots, he talked about his, family, starting in 1800. He talked about high diplomacy, like his grandfather, and I don't want to spoil it. Of course, some of you read it, and it's wonderful. And I could see that high diplomacy, turning conflicts between two neighboring communities, his own and the young communities, into peaceful coexistence. Instead of war, there was peace and integration of societies. How his family, I remember, the impact of his mother, he still sees the glitter in her face as she persistently supported him to go to school against the wish of their rested brothers and so on. And some of us will know, in those days, there was this thing that, that a child who is more reckless or something like that was encouraged to go to school. And the one who is more promising was kept at home to keep the family, going. His brothers were resistant to him going to school, but his mother saw how important it and supported him all the way. And you can still remember the expression in her face. I'm sure many of you will identify with that. And the thing that he also took from his father, that this day still play a role. I can identify with one thing. The way my father, my own father, behaved was just a catechism. and the things he did in Korea. And how many people still say that your father saved us? You know, sometimes, you know, from mass punishment of the political systematic during the First and World War. One of the things that I think in modern country, in 17 years of war, no official will visit the countryside. No official will go to the countryside. But my father will. All about the park, and we walk. Bicycles were not allowed. You could not use your bicycle. Bicycles were stored up. I remember when we recovered the bicycle, and then, after many years of being kept. But we cross the river, and we go to Borealis. And when we go home, some people from Nyanya will walk will come to my house, and my father will talk to them. And when he comes back, nobody will accuse him of anything. Although at that time, people would be afraid to cross the river because you would be accused of you might have gone. Why I say I identify with that? At the University of Cuba, every year I would take 6 weeks of annual leave. And you know the things how the power is played in Cuba. People are very, they worry to leave that, So it's a different thing, it's a different challenge. I will leave it to others. My colleagues run. And I think that one time I took 2 months and a half during the COVID to have my 2 vaccinations away with the power. I didn't worry about it. The other thing that I took from my father was that I speak my mind. One day, I say the truth as I see. One day, we went to give honorable letter to the president. And then when I was given the chance, I was with him, and I went and said something that would affect the system of government that is running. Talk about the need of prime minister, and so on. The security fraternity were very angry, but he said, let him say what he wants to say, So I think these are things I took that from my father, from saying the truth. But when I say the truth, I walk. People go to find me in hotel, and this little boy, they sit there, they take their tea, they listen to what I'm saying. They find that this is originating from me. I don't have anybody to try with that. You see, this one is the roots. And when we see Stephen Dhieu, when he was Minister of Finance, he was challenging things. One time we were questioning him. Quite opposite to me. He is exact opposite to me. He would swallow the hardest things. So we were questioning him. Then, he was announcing some policy. Then somebody would say, he doesn't want to say what he's supposed to say. Somebody at that point would have burst out in anger. Okay? But he is able to suppress that and keep his cool and still go. You see Stephen Dhieu in action more than what he said. Now, I have not reached this point again, but I want to say one, we all use electricity to have. The first is electricity power distribution. So what we enjoy here, is because the ghetto was founded under this. I'm sure there will be many, like they say, success and many fathers, and failure and none. So I'm sure there are people who will contest that is not this. I always say this one, that this is one of the achievements. The other one of the achievements is the revenue authority. I think we've done so many good things. We can, as much as we can be able to change. There were so many things that we have to change, but he decided not in the spirit that is able to endure even what is undesirable. And not many of us can do that. Maybe, I don't know, who comes first? Is that self-forgive, or is that Stephen Dhieu being able to sit over fire and still smile? Now, the question is, what has gone wrong with the banking system? There's no need to tell how did we begin this. I'm sure this is not addressing this book. But what has been mentioned by the captain in this book simply tell us where we're going with the banking system. I really want to welcome you all and wish you a very good lunch, and I congratulate you for putting your thoughts and your life into this very comprehensive, very interesting book to read. Welcome again, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Many thanks to the Vice Chancellor of the University of Juba, Professor John Akeem, for the opening remarks and also provoking our thoughts to think about what went wrong somewhere. And of course, this is a book launch, and it's about the author of the book. Now is the time to welcome the author, Honorable Stephen Dhieu, to present the key themes and inspiration behind Cattle Camp to Canada.
Thank you. Whoa, I'm happy. Right Honorable Mirayan Mejo, First Deputy Speaker of the Council of the State, distinguished panelist, Dr. Rebecca Lawrence, Honorable Lawrence Korbani, Dr. Namakola Jawin online, and Dr. John Gaio is also online. Honorable President of the Government, traditional religious leaders, the Vice Chancellor, to John Akeem, the host, and other academic institution leaders who are present. Ladies and gentlemen, morning. It is with profound gratitude, deep humility, and immense joy that I welcome you all to the official launch of my book, Cattle Camp to Cabinet, a shepherd of South Sudan's wealth. Your presence today is a great honor, and I sincerely thank each one of you for taking the time to celebrate this important milestone with me. Today is more than the launch of a book. It is a celebration of a journey of faith, resilience, education, public service, and unwavering belief that humble beginning should never determine our destiny. This book, the title Camp to Cabinet and the Shepherd of Well of South Sudan, tells the history of a young boy who grew up in the cattle camps of South Sudan, where life was simple but the values were enduring. It was there that I learned discipline, responsibility, resilience, respect for others, and the dignity of hard work. Those early lessons became the foundation upon which every stage of my life was built. Through education, perseverance, and the grace of Almighty God, the journey eventually led me from the cattle camps to the cabinet of the Republic of South Sudan, where I had the privilege of serving our nation in various capacities entrusted to me by His Excellency General Salva Kiir Mayardit, President of the Republic. The book, however, is not about a personal achievement. It is about possibility. It is about demonstrating to every young South Sudanese that regardless of where they are born or the circumstances they face, education, integrity, discipline, and determination can open doors that once appeared impossible. It is a reflection on our national journey. South Sudan is a young nation, blessed with abundant natural resources, resilient people, and enormous potential. Yet, we have also endured conflict, leadership, and difficult choices. My hope is that this book contributes to the national conversation on leadership, governance, economic transformation, peace, and institution building. Throughout my years in public service, I came to appreciate one enduring truth. Leadership is not measured by titles or position, but by service to others. Public office is a sacred trust that demands integrity, accountability, humility, and unwavering commitment to the common good. I hope readers will see this book not merely as a memoir, but as a contribution to understanding South Sudan's political economy, public administration, and development journey. It is intended to stimulate dialogue, encourage critical reflection, and contribute, however modestly, to building a more peaceful, prosperous, and united country. The idea of this book was born in 2020. While I was in rank, Northern Upper Nile, spending time on my farm. In that quietness of that environment, I found the inspiration to document my life journey. And the lesson that I had learned through decades of public service, I began to capturing with most reflections and key experiences, and by the way, I put them on a notebook before I transformed this note into my laptop, which at then became the manuscript for this book. When I started a collection of personal notes, gradually evolved into a complete manuscript as I continue writing in Dhieu, Nairobi, and during my travels across Europe and other destinations. Wherever I found a quiet moment, I wrote, revised, reflected, and refined the manuscript until it became the book we are privileged to learn today. Cattle Come to Cabinet is a personal journey that reflects the story of South Sudan from traditional community life through liberation to the challenges of nation building. The book is organized into 3 parts and 22 chapters. And this book, actually, it is 204 pages, written in volume of 55,000 words. And this book became the book we are privileged today to learn. And this, as I put it, is 3 sections. Part 1, the book, is roots, my roots, your roots, identity and values. This is part 1. For me, starting from the day I was born, 1960, and you will get in the book that the date was marked by an incident of communal fighting. Most of South Sudanese, they don't have a birth certificate at one of them. But because of some incidences or a natural disaster, something like that, sometimes are used as a date for the birth of the children in South Sudan. So this, the first section, explored my upbringing in the cattle camp, family history, cultural traditions, and early education. And also I believe that there is a kind of good education in the village and in the cattle camp you get in the book. That section covered from 1960 to 1985 when I completed the high school in Iran. Part 2 is the time that I joined the public service. At that time it was a time of liberation, public service and leadership. This second section accounts experiences during the liberation and my journey through public service. It emphasizes sacrifices, patriotism, institution building, and responsibility of leadership in times of both conflict and peace. And this section concentrating on my public service as a banker, 1991 to 2010. That time I worked in the bank as a state Minister of Finance in Malacca. And this period also, as I said, is examining the life I experienced during war and peace, and the public servant under one Sudan. Now, we came to section 3, governance, political economy, and nation building. And this is where I will be examining also my journey, lesson and experiences in 2011 to 2025. This third section reflects on South Sudan's political and economic challenges. I'm privileged that some shocks, difficult shocks that faced this country, I'm a witness, and I was also one of the leaders instructed to lead this institution. I witnessed the independence and the transfer of powers, the sovereign powers of the oil to the Republic of South Sudan, and what also faced the oil industry during my tenure. Oil shutdown, internal conflict, and the global crisis, oil crisis crash. All this directly you get in the book. So it examines governance, development, peace building, and the need for accountable leadership. A strong institution, economic diversification, and national unity. Diversification because one of the key institutions that I had the privilege to be a part of it is Submitment is SSRA, South Sudan Resort, formerly known as NRA. Overall message: the book illustrates that no dream is too distant. A shy race in a cattle camp can rise to serve in national leadership. So education, perseverance, and commitment to public service. It is also a call for South Sudanese to learn from the past, embrace unity, and work together to build a peaceful, prosperous, and inclusive nation. Ladies and gentlemen, no meaningful journey is ever traveled alone. I'm not alleging that what I did or how I have been shaped to be sitting here today, I didn't do it alone. So, my journey, even this book, there were people also behind the success. Allow me first to express my deepest gratitude to Almighty God, whose grace, protection, and guidance have sustained me throughout every stage of my life. I pay special tribute to my beloved family. They are here, Madam and my kids. Your unwavering love, patience, sacrifice, and encouragement give me the strength to complete this book. Throughout the journey, my family stood beside me with unwavering patience, understanding. They endured the many hours I devoted to research, writing, editing, and reflection. This accomplishment, therefore, belongs so much to them as it does to me. To my relatives, to my community, friends, colleagues, comrades, mentors, well-wishers, thank you for encouraging me to write this book. One of you reminded me that experiences gained over decades of public service should not remain only in memory, but should be documented for future generations. Your confidence in me gave me the courage to begin and determination to finish. I wish to praise my profound appreciation to Dr. Francis Madingdeng, one of the South Sudan's most distinguished scholars, diplomats, statesmen, and others, for graciously accepting to write the framework to this book. And I think he will join us in the course of this function from Dhieu online. His remarkable contribution to scholarship, diplomacy, field building, and national thought has inspired generations of South Sudanese. Having his reflection introduced this work is a privilege that I shall always cherish. I'm equally grateful to those who graciously endorsed this publication. My dear friend and brother, Dr. Dhieu former Minister of Finance and Planning and former Governor of South Sudan. And by the way, it was one of my close and friend as a colleague in the Bank of Sudan too. Dr. Pauline Ellen Riak, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, University of Rumbek, and Honorable Dr. Anito Leonardo, member of East African Legislative Assembly, Iyala, and former Minister of Agriculture and Food Security of the Republic of South Sudan. I sincerely thank them for their thoughtful endorsements. Their reflections affirm the importance of documenting our national experiences and enrich this publication with wisdom and perspectives that will benefit readers from the generation to come. My sincere appreciation also goes to lead publishers from believing in this manuscript from its early stages, the professionalism, editorial excellence, creativity, and unwavering commitment to transform an idea into the beautiful publication we celebrate today. Extend my gratitude to entire editorial, design, production, printing teams whose tireless effort made this book possible. To every researcher, editor, reviewer, proofreader, designer, printer, organizer, sponsor, supporter, volunteer, a friend who contributed in one way or another. I offer my heartfelt appreciation. Every contribution, whether great or small, become an indispensable part of this journey. Ladies and gentlemen, if this book inspires even one young person to remain in school, to value integrity, and to embrace public service, or to dream beyond the present circumstances, then it will have fulfilled one of its greatest purposes. I warn you, young South Sudanese to dream more than us. Become somebody. If this book encourages policymakers to strengthen institutions, improve governance, and manage our national resources responsibly for the benefit of all South Sudanese, then it will have made a meaningful contribution to our nation's future. The story of cattle come to cabinet is ultimately not my story alone. It is the history of our parents who sacrificed for our education, and my mom did that. It is the history of our teachers who shape our minds. I have some teachers who are still alive. Some I had an opportunity to interact with them when we became very colleagues in the cabinet. One of them is Ustaz. He said, Mar Dumat. He was the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, 2016, 2019, something like 2018. Always when I met him, instead to give him the title of Honorable, I will call him Ustaz. He said, he's always happy. Because one time, the chief bandit told me that this is your teacher. I think, yes, the one that will give me the knowledge. Have you given him Dr. Bashir? I didn't give him Dr. Bashir. This is the story of our liberation heroes who sacrificed lives to our nation. It is the story of every South Sudanese child who dream of a better future. Above all, it is the story of hope. As we learn this book today, let us renew our collective commitment to building a South Sudan founded on peace, unity, justice, knowledge, accountability, and shared prosperity. These are some things in the book for South Sudan come to flourish, and everyone to be happy. Without peace, without unity, without good governance, without transparency, don't dream that we will not get there. This is what I believe and that I hold. Let us invest in our youth. Let us strengthen our institution. That is the book talking. Let us protect and wisely manage our national wealth. Let us always remember that leadership is service. A service to our nation. A service to our nation is our highest calling. In closing, I once again thank all of you for your presence, your friendship. I'm really happy to see among us here my great friend, Justice Charles Madu. Thank you. Your encouragement and your unwavering support throughout this remarkable journey made this book inspire meaningful conversation, encourage responsible leadership, and contribute in its own modest way to the continuing history of nation building in the Republic of South Sudan. May God bless each one of you, and may God bless the Republic of South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Let us say this time is the time we have our panelists. As we said, we have panelists who are here with us. May I call on Dr. Rebecca Lawrence to come up on the table there, my table. And may I call also on Honorable Lawrence Kolmandi also to come up on the table. And we have Dr. Lamakol is online, he will be presenting online. And also Honorable John Guy, he will be also presenting online. So welcome Honorable Kolmandi and Dr. Rebecca, take your places up. The first of the panelists will be Dr. Rebecca Lawrence. Is an educator, a scholar, and a cultural practitioner with a focus on literary, cultural, and media studies. She has been living and working in South Sudan since 2014 and is an associate professor and dean of the School of Journalism and Media Studies at the University of Juba. She is also the co-founder of the Kikiri Collective, a multimedia organization using the arts and humanities to address social issues. Let us welcome Dr. Rebecca Lawrence with her remarks.
All protocol observed, as was said. And I'm honored to be invited to contribute my reflections on this work by Honorable Stephen Dhieu. As a literary and cultural analyst and keen observer of South Sudan's archive, my task is always to look beneath the surface of the text to find the larger global conversations it joins. Today, we gather to celebrate a volume that is a vital archive of our administrative history, a personal memoir, and a profound intellectual achievement. In Cattle Camp to Cabinet, Honorable Stephen Dhieu has given us a work that demands dual critical lenses. In my reading, it is simultaneously a masterfully structured buildings roman, which I'll discuss in a second what that is, and a landmark intervention in the global genre of petrofiction, which again, I'll explain further later. By fusing these two forms, the author has given us something unique, an insider narrative of resource governance that expands and adds to our established canons of political autobiography in South Sudan. I have not been brought here as an economist or political scientist, but as a literary scholar and a committed oral historian. So before we look at the machinery of statecraft, we must look at the power of language itself. Literature does not merely reflect the world, it shapes it, as our MC said, as our moderator said. On page 63, citing his own shepherd's philosophy, Honorable Dhieu writes, quote, "Nations like people are not born whole, they are shaped. As a literary scholar, I subscribe to a constructivist concept that nations are imagined communities, conjured into existence through shared symbols, texts, and discourses." In this book, Dhieu gives us a memorable, tangible example of this symbolic shaping through his historical account of our currency development. He charts the volatile material shifts from the Sudanese pound issued in 1970 to the dinar in 1993, back to the second Sudanese pound in 2007, and crucially, the introduction of the new Sudan pound by the SPLM in 2005. These were not just fiscal adjustments, they were text and discourse. A currency is a nation printing its sovereignty onto paper, drafting its identity before the borders are even finalized. By documenting these fiscal transitions, Dhieu shows us that economic instruments are themselves a form of national literature. In literary studies, we define the Bildungsroman, derived from the German words Bildung, meaning education or formation, and roman meaning a novel, as a genre focusing on the moral, psychological, and emotional growth of a protagonist from youth to adulthood. Honorable Dhieu's memoir presents a uniquely complex variation of this genre. It traces a dual trajectory, the author's own evolution and the turbulent institutional maturation of South Sudan itself. This is, in every sense, a Bildungsroman of the state. Classically, the European Bildungsroman traced the education of an individual through formal, institutionalized means, the traditional classroom and the civil school. Conversely, the early 20th century African Bildungsroman often focused on the tragic alienation of the individual, caught between traditional life and the estrangement of Western schooling. Honorable Dhieu engages this paradigm, inserting a perspective shaped by the unique social location of Sudan and South Sudan. His narrative traces the complexity of moving through multiple spaces and registers, each deeply valued for how they shape a character, Dhieu himself, whose ultimate destiny is to contribute to state building. Honorable Dhieu draws lessons from every corner of his environment. For him, the elders are an education. The village is an education. The cattle camp of Madut is a foundational education. Later, the central bank is an education, and Juba Radio is an education. In this expansive view of growth, the formal Western classroom is minimized or is positioned as parallel to these alternative knowledge structures of the camp and the communal assembly. The narrative moves masterfully across two distinct symbolic spaces: the origin, his origin, and the pinnacle. The pastoral life of the cattle camp is treated as the true ecological heartbeat of our nation, a space of community, environmental balance, and early leadership. The Bildungsroman structure charts how the values forged in that ecological heartbeat are carried forward into the cabinet, the modern bureaucratic arena where those principles are tested against geopolitical demands. Honorable Dhieu identifies so closely with the state that the narrative of self-development and the narrative of nation building become completely intertwined. As he beautifully notes on page 204, quote, "The story of South Sudan, like the story of my own life, has been written in struggle and resilience." This narrative reflects themes of the African Bildungsroman in how it coheres individual biography with the collective destiny of the nation. The Bildungsroman becomes a nationalist as well as state-building text. We see this on page 40 during his studies in Cairo. While there is an undeniable sense of alienation brought on by a foreign context and language barrier, Dhieu does not succumb to isolation. Instead, he finds solace, solidarity, intellectual awakening, and political debate among his fellow African and Arabs, and among whom are his South Sudanese colleagues and friends. However, a great memoir must also reveal the anxieties of its time, the social and personal anxieties. And Dhieu's journey exposes the profound structural ambivalences and internal fractures of the intellectual class during the liberation struggle. There is a gripping, quiet tension when he details the dissonance between his dual roles in Khartoum, serving on one hand as a professional banker for Sudan's central bank, while simultaneously acting as a clandestine host, mobilizing communities and building movement for the nascent SPLM. This represents a profound state of structural ambivalence, expertly navigating the financial systems of the old Sudan while remaining unshakably anchored to the cultural and political identity of the South. This Bildungsroman of state building is given a neat, almost teleological structure where challenges are systematically met and overcome. Even at moments of deep disillusionment, such as the massive administrative and political hurdles he faced when appointed state minister in Upper Nile State on pages 101 to 103, the author emerges resilient. Viewed critically, these sections function almost as a policy memo or an idealized blueprint for the state as it should be, rather than how it actually might have been or currently is. It is a text in active dialogue with power, translating the messy fractions of governance into structured lessons for future generations, for future statecraft. Hello? This profound cognitive shift from the pastoral cattle camp to the corridors of financial governance brings us to the book's second major identity in my analysis. Its place in global petrofiction, or oil literature. Did you know there was such a thing? There's a whole genre of petrofiction. Oil is not an afterthought in this book. It is an integral pillar of the state's building roman. We see this paratextual statement immediately on the front cover, the identity telegraphed, which juxtaposes the title with a striking image of an oil rig. The cover tells us that this memoir is concurrently a biography of oil itself. The industrial silhouette stands as a visual monument to the resource that defined both Dhieu's ministerial career and our geopolitical destiny. For decades, the global literary canon of petrofiction has been dominated by observers. We read Abdul Rahman Munif's Cities of Salt, which charts how the aggressive arrival of oil uprooted the nomadic landscapes of the Arabian Peninsula. Closer to home, we can read Nigerian Ken Saro-Wiwa's activist polemics, or Ilan Habila's Oil on Water, capturing the ecological fractures of the Niger Delta from the peripheral margins of power. These are vital milestones, but they view oil primarily as an external deterministic force of tragedy that leaves local populations completely powerless. Dhieu powerfully disrupts this tradition. Cattle Camp to Cabinet details these crises from the perspective of inner state responsibility. He demonstrates how oil is woven into the very fabric of personal and national memory. Early on page 4, he reminds us that Paloch, his family home and childhood cattle camp, was later transformed into a massive industrial oil hub. On page 6, he references the Adar oil field, noting the haunting ways the changing environment caused him to fall frequently ill as a child. He directly confronts the structural dependency of our nation, noting on page 100 that oil accounted for 95% of South Sudanese government income, reiterating our extreme resource vulnerability on page 111, and pointing out on page 125 that it climbed to 98% of South Sudan's national revenue. He does not hide these fractures. On page 164, he documents the collapse of the oil sector due to conflicts and deep-seated mistrust with Sudan, leading to his urgent push for economic diversification later in the book. His warning there is prophetic for any rentier state. Quote, "Sovereignty measured only by petroleum output is sovereignty at risk." Furthermore, Dhieu explicitly addresses the localized trauma of the industry. He explicitly confronts the problems of the oil sector, recounting the critical realities of pollution, environmental degradation, and community disruption within Upper Nile and Unity states. He honors the reality that the ecological heartbeat we see in the cattle camps has faced deep strain in these resource areas. Yet, where a novelist might stop at depicting the tragedy of pollution, Dhieu's narrative pivots to the agonizing prose of administrative intervention. He treats these crises as structural challenges demanding rigorous regulatory, intellectual, and bureaucratic stewardship. He details the immense weight of holding the pen during these crises, balancing the preservation of local ecosystems in his native Upper Nile with the macroeconomic survival of a newly independent nation. By recording the precise administrative prose of building ministries from the ground up, managing cross-border tariffs, navigating international fiscal policies, he converts what could have been a dry bureaucratic record into a living primary archive of our nation's economic survival. He shows us that the cabinet is not merely a political destination, but a space of immense responsibility where national wealth must be managed for people. Finally, by converting personal memory into public history, Honorable Stephen Dhieu has performed an invaluable civic and academic service. Writing as an insider from within the administrative apparatus, he has given us an irreplaceable record. It is highly notable that throughout the text, the author laments the tragedy of missing records and vanished files within the national ministries. In a post-conflict nation where institutional memory is fragile and physical archives are frequently lost or destroyed, this book, complete with its rich historical appendices, becomes a foundational archive in its own right. It is entirely fitting that this launch takes place here at the University of Juba, one of the intellectual hearts of the nation. Our duty as an institution is to engage with texts of this caliber with the rigorous analytical attention they deserve. But more than that, we must use this occasion as a rallying cry. We must encourage our other historic leaders, administrators, and elder citizens to follow Honorable Stephen Dhieu's example. Write your autobiographies, document your records, and for those who cannot write, let us proactively record their oral histories, a mission we continuously strive for through cultural preservation initiatives. This memoir vastly expands the boundaries of the national literature. It teaches us how the long journey from pastoral roots to institutional governance shapes the very fabric of the state. It contributes, as the author hoped, to ongoing conversations on governing with integrity and equity, rooted in place and purpose. Thank you, and congratulations to the author.
And Tim Daniel will be presenting the next two speakers, two panelists, and I'll be coming back. And we are left with Honorable Lawrence, and then Honorable John Guy, Honorable Dr. Lam, and Dr. Francis will be online, and Ann Ito has recorded her message, and then we will open the floor for interaction after that. And I hope the next comments will not be as long as Rebecca's, because we just want to stick to 10 minutes maximum for each, and the rest will be like less than even 10 minutes. So welcome Tim Daniel to introduce the next panelist.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, for that. Ladies and gentlemen and distinguished invited guests, I stand on the existing recognized protocol. Our next speaker is Honorable Lawrence Korbandi. He is IGAD Special Envoy for Sudan from 2024 to present. Lawrence Korbandi was appointed IGAD Special Envoy for Sudan on 26 March 2004. His mandate is to engage Sudanese, regional, and neighboring stakeholders, facilitate dialogue, promote common ground in addressing the Sudan crisis, and advise on the way forward. He has over 20 years of experience in governance, diplomacy, international relations, and law, with extensive knowledge of the Horn of Africa, IGAD region, Middle East, and multilateral institutions. Previously, he served as Presidential Legal Advisor to the President Salva Kiir from 2005 to 2020. He is also the chairperson of South Sudan Right Commission from 2010 to 2015. He is also a member of the Council of State. He is also a legal practitioner, businessman, and author of 5 books, a managing partner of South Sudan Associate Advocates. He has contributed to governance and peace negotiation in South Sudan and speaks English, Arabic, Spanish, and Muru. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Honorable Lawrence Korbani to give his presentation.
Good brother Stephen Dhieu, who brought all of us in this wonderful, whole, colorful presence. And for the first time, I'm seeing the attendees with this magnitude. This is something very encouraging, particularly the young people. And let me also recognize and confess very honestly the comprehensive analysis, literal analysis by Rebecca Lawrence. If she was, from Pan-African, you know what I mean? Her name is Rebecca Lawrence, and somebody will say, this is daughter of Lawrence Korbani. Rebecca and I, including John Guy, Gabriel Shadar, we have been working together on the issues of literature in South Sudan. We used to meet very frequently, and our voices reached to where our eyes would not reach. In fact, she's one of the pillars of promotion of literary and heritage work in our country. And when we started some years back, there were no cultural centers in South Sudan, in Juba particularly. Nowadays, you have so many cultural centers. They are doing a wonderful job in our country. Having said this, all the dignitaries who are here, colleagues of Stephen, those who work with him in the Ministry of Finance, including Dr. Dhieu, and others, I greet you all this morning or this afternoon for your presence. I will not talk much. I have 4 areas to run us through. You know, this book is an autobiography written by somebody who is present. His voice that touched our hearts and minds, both in his presence and also in the book. I want to simplify this by bringing us to home. If I was asked to rename this book or give new title to this book, culturally I would say from Loire to Caplet. Why? Because from cattle camp, it is a wider word. Culturally, you are no longer alone in raising cattle said. We are only in the market. So, the 3 or 4 areas that I would like to talk about is the depth of this story. And secondly, the narrative and pacing. Number 3 is the historical and cultural context. Lastly, the style of Dhieu in writing this book and the tone that attracted some of us to read the book, though in very short time when we were called upon. You know, let me begin by the last one, the style and tone. Those who read this book before coming here, the style is very simple, the language is simple, the ideas that are put there is direct, is not philosophical literature. It is not something that will compel you to get what he means. And this is the style that he adopted. And it is the best, in my view, style to tell your story, to reach to the wider audience. And he is very successful in that. Meaning, this book can be read by anybody, regardless of their educational standard, because it addresses us directly. And then the tone itself. You know, I know him as a very calm person, as many of you know him. When you are reading the book, you don't see emotions that portray his thoughts as an aggressive person, even if he was criticized, and he did in this book, on the issues of governance, on the issues of financial something. So all this you can see in him. You have seen when he was reading his notes comprehensively, and he is very focused and person of mood that would like reach his message to wider audience. Next is the historical and cultural context. When you read all these chapters, his culture, Dinka culture, his values, his way the family handled their affairs is very present in this book. That is why I prefer not to talk about the substance. I prefer to talk about these 4 points, such that you have the opportunity to give your own judgment to this. Rebecca has facilitated greatly these talks, literally. And those who are studying in the faculty of, yes, 5 minutes, I'm already ending. They will know what I'm talking about. The third point is the narrative and pacing. Pacing in literature is, in this case, his voice. If someone of you would like to turn this book to drama and act to our young generation, such that they get what he said in 200 plus pages in 1 hour or 2 hours, will be seen in his voice, not the physical voice that you are hearing, but his voice when he was addressing governance issues. He was addressing issues of finances. He was addressing his own family. He was swallowing some of the, agonies, some of the pains when he lost his father in earliest age. That is all what we call pacing. And this is very important. His voice about women, insistence on the role of women in, encouraging his own self to go and study. I think women of South Sudan, this is something that rooted deeply in your blood. Thank you very much. I'm also a product of a woman who groomed me like this. My father died when I was 3 days only. That is why I was called Kurbandi. And Kurbandi is corrupt word of Arabic language. In my language, it sounds different. The meaning is somebody unlucky because he will not grow up under the protection of his father. And mother took up, put me the way I am today. And you, through your mother, you are presenting this wonderful book because of your father and mother. Thank you very much. I think, let me conclude where I'm given warning. I will borrow from John Guy and Dr. Francis Day 2 minutes to accomplish my intervention. When you talk about political economy, I'm not an economist, but I must say that South Sudan has no political economy, in my view. Political economy is the thought, is the ideology that you would like to see your economy, how it looks like. What we are doing is apply the economy. Whoever coming in office, implementing what they have technically. And this is the biggest problem that we have in our country. We have no broad economic objectives. How do we want our economy should look like? I agree with your encouragement to the young people that I call them third guards. Third guards. Third guards, they are always questioning the first guard that you the first guard, and when I say first guard, is the leaders who are running our economy, the leaders who are directing our well-being, regardless results. These young people, their sole objective, regardless where they come from different political formations, they are always asking that how do you govern this country economically? For them, they want to see better life, better economy. But for us, the first guards, we want to govern. That is it. Nothing more. That is why you have put it correctly there. The way you differ in your approach with the general line, and you are so honest to put that in your book. I hope this book should be one of the academic, books to be read widely, because this is an experience of somebody who was sitting in the driving seats. Like, there is a book by somebody, I'm very poor remembering the names. He said, Confession of Economic Hitman. He was confessing on issues that he was involved in it, with a view to correct that thing. And we applaud you for that. Thank you very much.
So I would want to take this opportunity and read out the biography of our next panelist, and that is Ambassador John Dhieu. He's a South Sudanese national, obtained Bachelor in Political Science, Master in History from the American University of Beirut in Lebanon, and a PhD in International Politics from the University of South Africa in Pretoria. He served in various capacities within South Sudan and abroad. His assignment included Presidential Advisor on Education Affairs, Minister of Education, Science and Technology, and a member of the Transitional National Legislative Assembly, known as NTLA. He also served as South Sudanese Ambassador to the Republic of Turkey, and reached the head of the government of Southern Sudan and South Asian office in Pretoria. His mission accredited to South Africa, Botswana, Angola, Namibia, Lesotho, Seychelles, Madagascar, Mauritius, and SAD organization. He is also a lecturer in the University of the Middle East and South Africa. He was the president and research at the Royal Institute for Interfaith Studies in Amman, Jordan, as well as a lecturer at the University of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Ambassador John Dhieu, who will join us online. Ambassador, over to you.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
All right. Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank Honorable Stephen Dhieu, my colleague, for inviting me to be part of the panel of this important book. Also, I would like to thank our host, Professor John Dhieu, my co-host, my co-panelist, and all those who are present at this important book launching. I definitely would agree with my two colleagues who have already spoke about this book. It will depend on how you approach it. My understanding is that this book is an autobiography, a memoir by an individual who would like to share with us his understanding of life, because it's about life. There are, of course, in my understanding of autobiographies, different ways of looking at life. You can look first life as a story, and that is, you look at it as a process that drags on from one stage to another without end. And that is through generations. So your grandfather tell you the story, and then they tell it to his children, his children tell the other children. And if you are lucky, for 1,000 years, you can still remember exactly where your ancestors come in. The second way to look at it, also Stephen gave us this opportunity, you look at life as a journey with stopping stations, that you can choose it from childhood to your school, to job, to marriage, to career assignments, and share it with the people. So it can be a journey with stops. Then, of course, you can also look at life as a responsibility, that you narrate to people what you have done, what you are doing. In the case of Stephen, he's still active, and your achievements, your experiences, your failures, and that would end up as a legacy. So you can look at life as a responsibility and legacy. But also you can look at life in your autobiography as a story to be told without justification. You can just tell people what you have done and stop there. And then people can deduce exactly what you have done in your life. And finally, autobiographies or memoirs can also be see life as an open school where people learn and share. And that's why, if you notice in his first introductory part, it seems that he focused on ancestry role in his life and the life of the whole clan of Dhieu. And of course, in particular, the first assignment one of his important grandparents had was to give wisdom as a way of leadership, vision as a way of leadership. And later on, this became clear in the story that his grandfather Dhieu and his father Dhieu actually, through chieftaincy, brought home authority or leadership. And then in the process, as you read the book, the role of individual became very important, and Dhieu became, in my language, we call him Troop, the first person actually to join the urban life. And that shows that the ancestry can be an entry point to the coming generations when you look back. Another aspect which I think very important, this journey I have described based on autobiography of Stephen Dhieu also has journey blocks, or what you may call networks. These could be your extended family, your siblings, your roommates, your classmates, your cousins, your neighbors, your friends. And of course, it could also be your counterparts, if you will, your superiors, your teachers, your mentors. And the role of individuals here in the society, whether it is clan, sub-clan, or in the city, in terms of your those who have worked with you, could be summarized as Ubuntu, as Southern African Khoisan tribes would say, that I am because we are. And this you can see in his community of Dhieu, and then Dhieu become part of what is now called Malut County. But you look at it at Padang, and then Padang become Leka, Leka become South Sudanese, they become part of Padang also. So I am because we are. I think this came out very clearly in the understanding. The other point that is very clear, in my view, is connected with the moral lessons of life that a person gets. And you can see from Stephen's biography that there are two worlds. There is material world, and then there is a spiritual world. And this material world would be things that you acquire through knowledge, things like education, things like skills that you acquire as you go along, things that you acquire through your work, and the titles you acquire. He became a banker, then at later stage become a minister, and later stage he become different things at different times. This material world is very interactive, very, 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 and moves you away from what you describe as cattle or as Lawrence into a wider world, a world that you really would not expect to be. Or your grandfather, if they come back and look at you in that beautiful hall of the University of Cuba, presenting a book about them, they never felt that any of them, whether it is Ding or it is Mazet, or even if it is now your father would imagine that would be there. So this is the material world, which came clearly in your answer. Then there is spiritual world, which you described, where you learn moral lessons like accountability, moral capital, diversity, and issues related to legacy, things that connected with how you view the world in relation to others. Finally, if you look at the book towards the end, it presented, the author presented us a very interesting symbolism of life, and that is him being a participant in public life. Now, there's a difference between being part of and then being participant. And some of this symbolism are connected with what he described one's keeper as a banker, one's creator as a minister of petroleum, of course petrol is equal money, and then Minister of Finance, where actually you take care. When he came into this, whether in Maracan or in Juba, into this process or in Khartoum when he was a banker, he never felt that this thing will have meaning. And this is what life is all about. As you grow, you really never know what you become. You take a career, it's just a career. You get out of money. But later on, when you look back, you can give them a meaning, like being a once creator as a banker. Now, an ordinary person who's working in the bank will not know that his bank is a once keeper. The money is there in the banker, somewhere there, but then being part of the whole, maybe you have 5,000 people or 2,000 or 500, you are once keeper. And I think Stephen gave us that when you are given that responsibility, you must do it. And then of course he told us that there is once creator. Once creator could be anybody. Minister of Finance, Petroleum, you are working with collecting taxes like NRA or anybody. But these people, if they don't know this is what they do, they can just behave as if somebody else is supposed to be doing. This is a very good lesson that I think. Then there is another aspect of it. There is symbolism in public life. That is my last point. You could become a minister, but also you are a member of parliament, but also you are a member of party, but also you come from the community where you come, maybe you're a community leader. These roles that you play as you go along, you never know about them. And actually your community comes say, but how can you become a minister? You become at the same time a member of parliament, and at the same time you're the community leader, but you give chance to other people. So these things, as I said, when you write them down as memoirs, they make sense. But when you just live in your life, the only time they will be told is when you are dead. when your funeral is being made, then they say, he was this, he was that, he was this. The poor guy is dead. He doesn't know that people are talking about it. And so writing a memoir, when you are still, at least my age grade, by the way, I think by 4 years, you were 60, I'm 64. So if you write these things while alive, it's a beautiful thing because you are like telling people your story while you're still alive. And then also you give other people lessons. So I find this book to be very, very interesting because it actually gives life definition. Whether it is the earliest stages, way of life, or it is a journey, or it is a responsibility, or it is a story to be told without just finishing, or it's not open school. Either way, it is correct that you write your mama was still alive. And I thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much, Gabriel Shaddad. Our fourth panelist is Dr. Lama Kola Jawin, who will join us online, and I will read a glimpse of his biography. He's a South Sudanese academic and politician with long-standing career in both engineering and public service, spanning from the 1970s to the present day. He holds an extensive academic portfolio, including bachelor's in chemical engineering from the University of Khartoum, master in engineering petroleum from Herod Ward University, a PhD in chemical engineering from Imperial College in London, an honorary doctorate in political science from the University of Juba. His early professional life was rooted in academia, where he lectured at the University of Khartoum, University of Al Jazeera. He also chaired the board of directors of Port Sudan Refinery. Politically active from young age, he led the student union, held executive roles in national movements before participating in 1985 uprising that toppled the Nimeri regime. He also co-founded the Sudan African Congress and later joined the SPLM in 1983, undertaking underground role, field command and diplomatic roles, including zonal command and external relation coordination. This is just a short biography of him, and ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together as Dr. Lam is stepping to do his presentation. Doctor, over to you.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I thank the organizers for affording this opportunity to have this conversation. First, I must thank Honorable Dhieu for inviting me to be on the panel in this book launch. This is appreciable. I also thank everybody else who has contributed towards organizing or in giving comments, those of the panelists and those who are the MCs. I commend Honorable Dhieu for writing a book. You know, our society is still an oral one. Many of our educated persons do not write, and the few books written are not read. So that is a remarkable work from his side. Dhieu writes about his upbringing in the cattle camp, where he is imbibed the moral and spiritual values that have been passed down from. And these are sacrifice, courage, resilience, integrity, and responsibility. These values made him sail through the difficulties of schooling far from home. Here he describes in detail the impact of his family, teachers, and friends on his growth and his strong character that saved him in public office. All these experiences are woven in a unique style into a story of his rise from the cattle camp to the corridors of power in Juba and Malacca. It is a remarkable work worth reading. Since this is a book launch, I will want to highlight certain important points to the audience who might have not read the books, to whet their appetite. Dhieu enumerates 3 principles that accompanied him in every office: about civil service, budgets, and neutrality in finance. You'll find this on page 76 to 77. He also gives us what he called the central bank delete, that is central bank independence is secured by political culture and by leaders writing to respect and willing to respect an institution's mandate and shield it from expedience. You'll find this on page 80. Also, another important principle that he has also made clear, and I find important to highlight, is that the central banks must have integrity as the first currency, service the highest honor, and discipline the surest defense of a nation. This is on page 120. So, I believe that the experience of Dhieu in the book is something that others can learn from. Of course, this new generation will be deprived from the first part of growing up in the village, hearing cattle becoming a shepherd and all this. Another important thing he also said is, which I want to highlight for those who have not read the book, is that his long-held conviction, that is Dhieu, sorry to call him by his first name, that his long-held conviction that moral strength of a nation is judged by the fairness of use of its resources and economic diversification was about establishing the balance between authority and accountability, and between government and citizen. This is a very important remark from him. You'll find it in page 198. Another important one also, he says, ultimately the country's recovery must rest on a new social contract between leaders and citizens, anchored in integrity, shared responsibility, and the conviction that lasting peace is built by the daily pursuit of dignity and opportunity for all. He then goes on, the peace we seek will not come from agreements alone, but from the hearts of men and women who choose reconciliation over revenge, service over self, and principle over power. You'll find it on page 204. Now, I would want to indulge into a number of things which I hope would have been written differently, maybe in future edition of the book. The first thing to talk about is about the regional government. I will not definitely follow the paid numbers in sequence, but I will follow the ideas. The first thing is about the scholarships to Egypt, from which Honorable Dhieu benefited from, among others. It doesn't come out clearly in the book that this was an arrangement made by the regional government with the Egyptian authorities. It doesn't involve Khartoum. And in this arrangement, which I consider one of the most important achievements of our regional autonomy in 1972 to 1983, is that we sent 300 students every year for tertiary education in Egypt, far more than the number which is absorbed in the country. And this is started in 1974. Now, on Labu is mentioned as the former vice president. He was also a former president of the High Executive Council, and he wasn't a founder of Anyanya, but he played a bigger role at the later years of the Anyanya. He actually has the credit of having unified the various factions of the Anyanya at that time. About oil, there is always a controversial issue about the shutdown in 2012. And the narration of Stephen Dhieu gave us insights into the different views expressed. Was it only about dignity? Because he mentioned that the shutdown reaffirmed South Sudan's dignity. Was it only about dignity, or is it also about economics? You remember 98% of our budget depends on oil at that time. So when we shut down, almost all our income was gone. Could we follow other tactics? He gives an indirect answer when he talks about the struggle with Sudan'S. He said that they took Sudan'S to a court of arbitration in London. That was 2016, which they won. They won the case. And then he concluded by saying that case showed that they following the course of law and save them the course of war. Which means if it was possible to also do the same when the Sudan government was seen to have stolen oil equivalent to $800 million. Again, when the September agreements were made, the September agreements, there is one called the financial, what is it called? financial arrangements. That financial arrangement, part of it was to give Sudan about $3 billion to cushion the loss of oil. And this is to be paid within a period of 3.5 years. Now, if you calculate that, it means every year you are paying 857 million, more than the original amount, you see, for which we closed down the oil. And the impact of that closure is still with us up to today. We are not recovered fully from that episode. Last, I will come to the title. I put it last because the first observation is that when you say cattle camp to cabinet, I don't know whether Dhieu might have not forgotten to add from cattle camp to cabinet, or is that intentional? Because this will give you the impression that it is a cattle camp which is going to the cabinet. The other thing is also the word shepherd can be misunderstood, because a shepherd has a personal responsibility over the sheep or the cattle he is looking after. Could it be also adjusted? One other point is Dhieu writes, on page 202 is rather worrying to me. He's writing like somebody who is, retiring. When he says he's passing the staff to the next generation, you still have a lot to contribute, given this impressive performance when you were minister in the economic sector. I don't think there is one day you did not occupy. You were in commerce, industry, investment, oil, finance. So you still have, and you are still young, you can contribute. By the way, when you talk about college and Malut, these things ignite memories and nostalgia in me. I was in college, I think 3 years before you were born, when it was only it started villages around a big Hafir. Now the faith has turned it into a big hub of oil. Then my experience with Malut wasn't a pleasant one, because we were taken to Malut elementary school to be admitted. Unfortunately, I was rejected because they said I was young, and my two other brothers were accepted. They are younger than me. I did not see Malut and Malut again until about 30 years later, when I was zonal commander of Northern Upper Nile. I would recommend people to read this book, and I really, again, I will commend Dhieu for writing a beautiful book in a style that makes it easy to understand to non-specialists. I would advise that in the coming editions, I hope you will put an index at the end, because it simplifies references. And also I would also hope that the, what is it, this is Appendix 7, if you could put it in a graphical form that helps people see the rise and the sharp rise or sharp fall of the items being displayed, whether it is inflation, whether it is exchange rate, official or parallel. Once more, I think I'm very grateful to be part of this discussion, and I thank all of you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramakola Yawin, for the insightful remarks for the author, especially for the second edition. Yes, we are left with only one panelist online, and we expected them to have just like a little bit more than 5 minutes, but it went like that. Dr. Francis Madingdeng is online, and with the time difference, I think it has been very hectic for him. Welcome, Dr. Francis, and there's no need to introduce you because I think most of the audience here, they are very familiar with you, someone who has been writing books, more than 39 or 38 books, and a diplomat, and a negotiator, a lot of things. Welcome, Dr. Francis, for the next 5 to 6 minutes.
Thank you very much. Since the quality of the voice quality varies a bit, am I being heard well?
Yeah, we are getting you loud and clear.
Is my voice clear?
Yes, we are getting you, yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be part of the panel, and I'd like to recognize those who have spoken before me, and they went into great depth in analyzing or presenting the book. I will not try to delve into the details the way they did, which was very informative. As some of you may know already, I was honored to write the foreword to the book, and therefore I would not necessarily get beyond the main points made in my foreword. As has been said, the book is really excellent. It's technical and yet presented in a language that is accessible. It delves into the details of economic and financial management. I have to admit that I'm not an economist, nor am I an expert in finances, but the book is very accessible even to those who are not experts. I must say that one of the things that I find quite remarkable about the book is a sense of purpose. You know, we tend to take life as it is. We get born, we grow, we maybe do things in life, we get old and we get old. But I think it's very important to have a sense of purpose, a goal, a vision. We're here for a purpose. We're not just here to exist and to live and die. And I think the book does an excellent job in giving us a background whereby the vision, the purpose, the objectives, even if they're not clear from the beginning, at least you know that you are here for a purpose. And you're raised with a sense of value that you will contribute to your community, to your country. And that is one of the things that struck me very much, is Eden going back to his roots. And very often when I talk to our young people, even in the diaspora or at home, I say human being is like a tree. A tree with deep roots, even a hurricane, the tree will withstand it. A tree with shallow roots can be knocked down by even a small wind. And the roots are your background, your cultural values, the purpose for which your family has set you in life. And he tells that story about his father sacrificing his own life for his sons. I was struck by that because I see many similarities. I don't want to get back into the personal aspects of it and elements that I share. But another symbolism I often present is that within us there is an invisible bridge that allows us to travel from wherever we begin to wherever we go and back. Without that bridge, life becomes very hazardous. You might fall. And I think that's part of what Stephen has done. He has given us the roots, and he's given us also the invisible bridge that he tread. Another aspect that struck me is the value he gave to his relationships. And that is really something all of us must value, because throughout our life, whether it is before school or during school and transition into professional, we obviously have been influenced by individuals who have either advised us or helped us, and those are important aspects to it. Another thing that I found is this ability that Stephen has in linking technical knowledge with the fundamental values. So, for instance, the ability to even turn negatives into opportunities for construction. I found that very, very striking. Even the way he approached the Islamic approach to debt or to loan, borrowing money or profit from loan, as opposed to making money productive in a shared arrangement or all that. I think some of us might come with predetermined feelings about if this is rooted in a religion that is not ours, then it is not ours. But Stephen does a very creative job in seeing the positives in what many people might dismiss. The other thing that is striking really is the extent to which he built on the institutions that exist, tax collection, provision of services, trade, partnership with others, in a very holistic way that you could say really established a financial, economic structures that are very healthy for any country. Now, the author does not shy away from the politics of the country. And you have this combination of creative ways of managing the economy and the finances of the country with some of the counterparts, or what you might call undercurrent, whether it is corruption or a sense of entitlement, that we have struggled and therefore we deserve something, which is in a way a sense of entitlement that can lead to corruption. I've always said that corruption is in many respects a function of greed, but it is also a function of need. And if a few leaders to whom people look don't get enough to help, and they're able to access resources, the temptation might be very strong there. Part of also what the book does in linking the economy and finance with politics is to talk about some of the tensions that the country has gone through. And even now, in fact, the book goes up to 2024, which means that it's very close to where we are now, and to talk about elections and the dangers. Of course, elections in many ways can be a source of conflict because it's the idea of a winner take all or zero-sum approach to politics in a country that is still torn apart, very, very treacherous. And so we need really to have a common ground. And I think one of the things the book does is give us a sense of the cultural values that should guide us. And our cultural values, and I should say from the very beginning, you are spotted to become a leader because of certain attributes. And those attributes usually have to do with uniting your people, being a source of reconciliation, harmony. And I think that is where we are now. We are torn between Western concepts of democracy and traditional African ways of finding a common ground, peace, reconciliation, harmony. And I think we have to work with those elements. And one question I have, and I was given only 5 minutes, I think I'm over. What Honorable Stephen has done is a record that is exemplary. And we have, of course, in the audience, very distinguished leaders of the South, including in the area of finance. And I wonder whether what he has done with a great deal of relative success, what it has meant for the country. You know, as I was actually working on the foreword to the book, I kept asking myself, with all these creative achievements in managing the finances of the country, why are we where we are? What is the result of all of this? And of course it has to do with succession of leaders also and the extent to which these values are shared. So I just want to end with a question mark, really, that perhaps Stephen Dhieu will address at one point or another. What happened? This level of success, which really means that we have laid a foundation for very constructive management of the economy and finance. Where does it lead? Where has it gone? And why have we still not seen the success that the book talks about in terms of something quite sustainable and hopefully shared by all the finance ministers who come? I just want to end again by saying the book is very accessible. I was very honored to write, a foreword, and I end on the notion that really this is, as Lam said, it's a record of achievement, but not an end, because Stephen has still a lot to contribute. Thank you very much for honoring me to be part of this, and I acknowledge also with appreciation and gratitude all those who have spoken before me and helped with the substance of the book. Thank you. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Francis Madingde, for your remarks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for interaction and a very short commentary from the